borders on it includes performance. So it's like this redefinition of printmaking, which you will talk about. So what we'd like to do is to start with each of the artists talking a little bit about their work, so you get a bit of a context. I'll have questions, we'll have conversation. It's super casual. We will have opportunities for questions, but if you have something that is burning on your spirit that you need to ask in the moment, please do so. This really is an exchange. And then at the end of the conversation, we encourage you to connect and talk to the artist, but then also to plan on coming back to visit them in their studios. So Zuza, you are first. And the mics, I know we're like projecting, the mics are for the benefit of those that are online. So just so you know. So Zuza, I'm going to give you this. Yes, please. And then it's on. Thank you, Ben. And that will advance your slides.
Okay.
So yes, still project, but talking to the mic.
Thank you. Thanks for such a warm welcoming here. It's been great the first month, and everybody's so helpful. So thank you for that. Yeah, I come from Poland, and my background is in printmaking. But at some point of my career, I thought that, yeah, I love the idea of having a matrix and having a print, the two fundaments of printmaking, but it became a bit boring. So I started thinking, like, how do I move the borders of the field so it keeps vivid to me. And my idea is that I'm working for years now is to use everyday objects or site-specific places to create a matrix. And this is one of the examples in which I used a real sauna and did a woodcut on all the surfaces of that space, and then invited people to use the sauna. So it was inked, and the prints appeared on the skin of the people using sauna. So it was kind of the inverse of the traditional use of this place, where you seem to clean your body from toxins, and here the body becomes dirty. So the title is in Polish is Brudas. It's really hard to translate this in English. I think the closest is slop. And yeah, there are like multiple interpretations of that work. So you can have your own idea maybe, or we can talk about it later. I usually also work a lot with my own skin and with my own body, and try to encourage people to be a part of my works. So that one, under title "Play with Me," it was an installation. So I used like wooden types for. Not typography, but printing types, like these traditional ones for printing books or newspapers, and printed a set of letters that are used for playing Scrabble on my body, and then asked people to play with it. So it was on the magnetic foil, and they could move around and create their own compositions and words. In that work, it was simple performative act during the time when I was pregnant, and the idea came from the situation when people, maybe some women here who were pregnant know that situation, that even people that we don't know, come and touch the pregnant belly. And it was a very weird situation to me, like a very weird feeling. And I started reading about it, and somehow it comes from the feeling that we are welcoming a new member of the society. The beginning of the show I had in Krakow in Poland. I invited people to be a part of that symbolic welcoming of my son in our society. So they would leave fingerprints on my pregnant belly. And that piece is being presented here at our wonderful Mythos exhibition, and it was created in Buenos Aires during a residency there. And the title is "I'm Just a Pawn," and it's linocut chessboard, and I danced and moved on the surface of that linocut huge matrix, so it left different signs and patterns on my skin. And the last piece was created last year in Sri Lanka, and it was kind of based on the same idea of printing on skin. But in the world of printmakers, we call that technique blind embossing. So there is no ink. You can do that on paper. So when you have a relief print and don't like woodcut or linocut, and you use paper, it just leaves like a mark, like embossing on the paper. So you can actually do that with skin, and it happens to us every day in the morning when you look at the mirror and you see like your pillow pieces on your face. So that's where the idea came from, and it was kind of a connection with the earth and with the beautiful nature that I met there at Sri Lanka. So that's one of the last pieces I did. Thank you.
I think you're next. I'm pretty sure.
Let me see. There. Okay, hi, I'm Tadeo. Well, I'm from Buenos Aires, Argentina. I think this image is the Minotaur. I made this piece for a show in Argentina. It was about Jorge Luis Borges. He's a very important writer that he made different books about mythology too, you know. I think this piece is it's a mix about different things I was working. They are like mythology, sexuality, and fabric installation. So I think it was really funny. I made this huge fabric installation, you know, that people, they think at the first time that they're like toys, like giant toys, but the sexual part begin to happen other stuff. Like in the moment that the people saw this figure, they were like in the moment they saw or they thought that it was just like a huge toy, but the sexual part of the capture begin to change the perception of the work. Of I also work a lot with the body, with my body, embody these fabric sculptures using a suit in performance art. The second piece that I'm showing there is more close. It's 2021. It's I begin to work with the shadow and what is like what display the shadow or what is inside the shadow. It was in meanwhile I was we were in the quarantine, in COVID quarantine. So I was in my house, and you know, in night I saw the reflex, the light that came from the street, and it seems like the shadows that they display these objects were more living more than what that was happening in the streets and that was happening in my house. So I tried to translate that to the fabric and gave them like create this like a strange objects that were transformed itself. Okay, there's something also about the relationship between the skin and the fabric. Uh, you know, there is, because on my work also I try to combine different mythologies from different part of the world, like from ancestral cultures, not just from South America, but from different part of the world, and I create like I don't know, like a new mythology representing all these characters. And here I was in Argentina. We are very close to Amazonia. Amazonia is in the north, like close to the Misiones. We have jungle there, and there they live the Guarani culture. Guarani culture is they live in the jungle or part of the jungle, and they have a mythology that in the mythologic times, you know, plants, animals, and humans, they were the same. They were similar. So in the present time, what in a way, my English is very bad, so I'm trying to.
It is not bad.
I'm working on. Yeah. Well, they say in the present time, what it's divides us from the plant and from the animals is the skin. So the common, the essence is human in a way. So I begin to think how many layers of skin the human can have. So I begin to represent like these human figures or these characters with if we have like a seed skin, like a soil skin, how many different layers we can have as human, you know? Also, I'm like a metaphor of transformation, that we have to evolve in a way, we have to change ourselves. Well, and this is the fisherman, the pescador. I was doing this piece in Morocco. I was in a fisherman village, and well, and here I wanted to show this work because an important part of my work is the performance with these suits. Like in a way, allows me to create like a narrative with these characters, with these kind of creatures, and I can embody allows me to be part of the work and to tell different stories with these characters. So here in this place, it was like a fisherman village. I took a different element from the place, from the fisherman. They live there like different waves, they say,
Mhm.
redes para pescar,
Oh, the
like
nets.
nets,
Yes.
That's right, nets. So I incorporate that to the suit. I make like a performance in the village. Well, and this is more like like a the kind of work I make, like this fabric installation. This is called Hakai Pacha. Hakai Pacha, we have in the North Argentina is like uh, we have like the Quechua community, you know. Well, it's like a more it's like indigenous part. They have the Hakai Pacha. It's a word that is a mix between the word beyond us and the word that is in us. So it's a very complex meaning, the Hakai Pacha, but I want to represent that, how it will be to have a shape of that. So I made this piece. I think this is the last one. Yes, this is the last one.
I don't even know. Hello?
Just
Okay.
talk loud.
Just talk loud?
Yeah.
Okay. Can I like cheat to see what all is in here? I don't know what you guys use. Hello. My name is Shaniqua Gay. I am originally from Atlanta, Georgia. And my work is very much steeped in Black Southern traditions and creating my own mythologies. Any 80s babies in here? 2? Okay. I wanted to be a Atreyu. Is that familiar? Never Ending Story. You guys are old enough. I'm looking at your faces. You're old enough to remember the Never Ending Story. Thank you. Narnia.
Yes.
All right, we got some familiar. All right. I'll do one better. Between Bell Hooks and Gloria Steinem, they had a conversation in which they spoke about how over the course of 3,000 years, divinity was removed from women and animals. And then Bell Hooks spoke about how can people of hue ever truly decolonize their minds if they cannot imagine themselves as divine, right? Growing up in the South and on the Bible Belt, I attended church Sunday to Sunday. Am I alone in that? No? Okay, good. And also my mother is a minister, right? And so growing up, going to Black churches, very rarely, if ever, did I see people that looked like me in stained glass windows and paintings, nor did I hear about the divinity of women too much in the Bible, right? Coming from the city of Atlanta, which was an all Black space, my parents, like most parents do, they moved their children to places that have better education. And so my parents moved us from Atlanta to then Fayetteville and Riverdale, that at the time were all white communities. So I very much desired, be it in church or in my everyday spaces, to see myself as divine and powerful, right? And I felt like Atreyu in Neverending Story was powerful. When I read the stories of Narnia, I very rarely was able to imagine a Black fawn, right? And so I very much wanted to see, this kind of classical mythology in basically Black communities. And so I decided to create that, which I did not see, right? And so that's what you're seeing in these images. I pull from deer, vulture, minotaur, raven. I take whatever is before me. One, because I want to reflect that all are thou, right? So if you're coming from a biblical perspective, we're taught that man has dominion over the earth. I'm interested more so in an indigenous thought process that all are thou, right? That includes land, all beings, and all animals, right? I can't see. Your head not that big, but thank you. So these are, let's see, this is a large scale image, a mural that I did, I guess kind of late fall of last year, of Izzy. Do any of you remember Izzy from the 1996 Olympics? What's it? Kinda. Oh, where were you guys in 1996? It's fine. So Izzy, the 1996 Olympics in Atlanta was the beginning of gentrification, right? And Izzy very much represented as a symbolism of that. And so I have my kind of mythological figures chasing him with water guns. The founder and creator of the Super Soakers is actually a Black man that's based in Atlanta. He's actually, I believe, from Dothan, Alabama, but based in Atlanta, and using mythological landscapes that I would perceive from gentrification, right? So I don't know how gentrified communities are going here, but in Atlanta, they're disappearing quite quickly, right? And so these places in which I used to play, places in which I used to visit where my grandmother and family members lived, I now put those places in the background of my images because I believe thought and memory, especially for any oppressed people, are probably our most powerful weapon, is to remember. This is from Syracuse University, a mural called Carry the Weight. I did a series about the Atlanta child murders. Anyone familiar with those, right? So there are a lot of documentaries created about the Atlanta child murders, but it is what I perceive to be a kind of haze that hangs over the city. I went and took several photographs of young girls playing because I remember not being able to go outside and play because my mother had such an obsession over my brother and I. So just that kind of lack of freedom, being able to play in our community, and then being able to see other girls have this freedom and then yet be unaware of the histories and the places in which they were playing. And so on top of their faces are actually the eyes of family members or the young people who either disappeared or were murdered, right? Let's see. Can you see that? It's also a play on kind of tropes and familiar places in the city of Atlanta. Waffle House is an obsession for most community. Is that an obsession here in Charlotte? Yeah, just a little bit. Okay. The premise of my work really began in graduate school, where I my friends and family members, I torture them. They are my muses. And so this is an image of about 4 friends gathered in my studio space and just talking about, right, the ritual divinity and glory of how beautiful Black women are, right? And just doing that within the space of performance. And so I took maybe about, 350 images of them, in which I then turned into murals, into paintings, and into installations. All right, is that it?
Yep.
I have more? I got it.
How's everybody doing? All right. My name is Will. I'm here in Charlotte based, but I'm actually coming from a small town called Dalzell, South Carolina. If you've never heard of it, maybe you've heard of Sumter, South Carolina. If you've never heard of it, maybe Charlotte based. I don't know where else to tell you. But a lot of my photography and stuff kind of comes from a lot of the characters and people that I used to see around town and things like that. And one of the ways I got really started in photography was just like family members, just capturing moments and stuff throughout life, and also just taking photos in school. But interesting story we said about Waffle House. My actual first time being like considered a photographer was I was doing photo shoots in school for like my photography class. And then one of my friends like, hey, do you shoot parties? I said, sure. So I got my career started off shooting clubs. And like the first night we went out, they were really looking through our photos in the Waffle House. So it was me and a bunch of other people. I'm not going to mention what type of people they were, but all around me were just looking through photos. Everybody going, ooh, we get going crazy in the Waffle House. So from there on, I just kept on going with it. And that was like 2007. But essentially, I've always kind of focused more on people of color when it comes to shooting. Not just more or less just because, like I said, everything I do kind of mimics the people I see around me. So this one that you see here is called The Muse. One thing I like to do is something called pull-up portraits. I don't always have an idea for everything I shoot, nor is everybody I shoot a model. It's more or less I'm bored, my camera's here, come take pictures with me. And this is something we was doing one day. And when my friend came in with this outfit on, I don't know why we were having a random conversation about the movie Hercules, and we were singing the songs. So where the idea of the muse came from, we had her posing like a lot of the muses from the actual movie as we were going through it and just kind of creating like this narrative around her. And this was like our first time actually doing something together. So it just became like one of my favorite images through there. This one is called The Shack and You See Me. So these are from like the series for some of the images that you see around here. I call my home series. So I actually took a group of people down to my hometown, and we did a lot of shooting in a lot of locations that are there. So if anyone, I'm pretty sure no one's familiar with Dalzell, South Carolina, our population is maybe like 1,000, maybe 200 now. So there's no stoplights. The only restaurant is this place, the Chinese Chicken Shack. Been going there. Everybody's been going there for 30 years. It was a big thing when we got a Family Dollar like 6 years ago. So that gives you an idea how small it is. But essentially what we did was I went to a lot of the staples around there. So the Chicken Shack was a staple. Then go to the Chicken Shack was the car wash. It's the only car wash you go to, but everybody would meet up there. You get your cars going. Somebody had the system blasting. Then down the street, we shot at my grandmother's house, like this image of the light box there. She passed away about 12 years ago, but her house was sitting there out there. So you see all the trees and grass and stuff is growing up through everything. And it's just kind of like taking back the memories, but also incorporating like a lot of things like we didn't have enough money. I couldn't buy the gold chains, the nice car, anything like that. But these were all the things I like to see. So I started incorporating a lot of series, just kind of reflecting on a lot of this stuff. So I do kind of sometimes portray that image. I got all today, so I don't know. I lost it. I would have had to fix it, but I couldn't find it. This one is called The Bloom. So basically, this is one I did back in like 2018. Essentially, the reason why I added this photo here, because it kind of shows kind of where I started off from when I first started really thinking about what I wanted to shoot and make it happen direction. So I was doing a lot of things with Black women in floral. So this was the first time I actually built out a whole scene. So it's like somebody walked into our studio and there was this big 8-foot by 8-foot wall of wood, and me with a whole bunch of wallpaper and stuff like that, just building out. And I really just wanted to kind of test and see how I can bring an actual thought to life. Normally, everything I did before that was just me just shooting. So this was my first time actually bringing something to life. And what was funny is that I guess I found out during that time that I never used to post myself on my page. I found out when I started posting shooter, everybody thought I was a woman on my page. So I got put into a show in Durham, all women's floral show in Durham. And they called me on the phone. It was like, hold on, you're a guy? I'm like, yeah, okay. But it was kind of a confidence thing because it kind of showed me some confidence at work. So I ended up taking this whole setup. I built it out up there. I was doing like all these portraits and stuff with people up there, everybody taking selfies. But it was really just my first time really just getting into the group of just figuring out who I capture, why I do what I do as I kept developing the story. Lag. So, like I said, called Do-Rag Fest, and just kind of show off how do-rags like that. Because one of the other biggest things I want to do is start. What I am doing is starting to normalize the things that you see. A lot of times you'll see this person that looks just like him walking around and think he's you scholar, this person that graduated from Harvard or whatever, wealth, or the do-rag is meant to protect his hair, not just to be, status symbol of a thug or anything like that. So essentially what I'm trying to do is kind of build the normalization of how these different characters look and how people choose to express themselves. And it's like in 2021, we did a show called Off the Plantation at Elder Gallery. And the first part of the show, we did a more performative show. So I embodied this character called, I cannot remember what it was called, but basically I donned like a tiger tracksuit with gold chains, gold grills, do-rags, everything like that. And I was talking to people in a certain tone. And at the end of the show, they had to guess what I did for a living. So nobody could really figure it out. Or people was like, oh, you're the hustle man. Or you the drug dealer. I was like, why do I have to be all that? If you had asked me questions, I would have told you a story. Only one person got me, though, because I was telling people I went to Harvard or something like that. And they was like, oh, you ever go to this shop? I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, but that's the one person that got me. But he actually asked questions. So it's interesting to see like hundreds of people come through, but nobody actually asked questions, but they assume what I did just based off my look. And the last one, I think, this one's called The Twins. This is part of that home series as well, too, just kind of focusing a lot on like, these are two of my friends. They're like my sisters as well, but they also kind of represented some of the women that raised me as well, too. Some of my aunts actually had like the gold caps and stuff like that going on. They just kind of embodied that. And what's funny is everybody asked me about this question. Yes, this is double exposure off film, but it was shot by accident. It was not on purpose. All the rest of the film messed up except for this one shot, and this has been my favorite shot off the whole roll. And that's it.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so now I'm gonna ask you questions. And again, this is a conversation. So should you want to ask a question, please ask. So I want to start, I've kind of planted a couple of things. I want to start with the question about your use of the body, because the figure and or the body kind of manifests across all of your work. Can you jump in where you want to, where you fit in, whoever wants to answer? Can you start talking a little bit about how you use the body and why? You got go. You got the mic.
How I use the body. I think it's some of what I said already. I use the human body a lot just because I'm not great at abstract stuff, but I like using the black body because I like to make it feel more normal, more natural, more beautiful, stuff like that. Versus us just being looked at a certain way. So that's kind of like how I do it. Hopefully that's answering the right way. I'm trying to make sure I do
It's
it.
however you want to answer it. It's not a right way. It's your
Yeah.
way.
But that's generally how I do it. It's pretty short. I was already talking too much.
You're fine.
Anybody else?
Oh.
Go, go, go.
Okay. Well, the body. Well, I think in my work, I use my body in a way allows me to when I use these suits, the body allows me to be part of the work, to embody these figures, and also that allows me to create like a narrative for these characters. So I think that is important because I begin to create like a storyline with these different characters. That's in a way that how I use my body in the work. But in other pieces, like the ones you saw, the Minotaur, or maybe the sculpture is in the second floor. It's like I try to, in a way, that's the thing that I was trying to say last time. Like I made this like mythical creatures, toys, like giant figures in fabric. And I try that the part of the body, the sexual part of the body, they be present. I think that's the way that allows change how you see the sculpture, and also I think other part of the human being is about like the skin and how to change the skin and the fabric, like a kind of skin body that has to change and is like has different layers. I think has like a different possibilities. The how I think the body and the fabric in the or in my work.
So is your use of fabric, right? Because there's any range of material you could use.
Yeah.
Does that relate to these ideas around skin, or is there is there another reason or ways that you're thinking about your selection for fabric?
Yeah, well, I begin to use fabric. I was like I was like 20 something. It was very hard to start sewing. I got a bit crazy because it's not an easy material. My mom teach me how to sew, and I began to use fabric because it's allowed me to translate what I was painting to a three-dimensional object. So you have to do the 2D patterns, that is something flat on paper, and when you sew the fabric and you put the water inside, it begins to get this three-dimensional, like it's like a three-dimensional piece. But also that was interesting because the fabric, I hope I was a bit distant of the fabric, just like an object that allows me to create the sculpture. But also then I think that how I was in the studio. I took a sculpture and I put it like behind me, like I said, well, I willing to think like a second skin, like the fabric, these pieces like a second skin, and a possibility me to embody and like make a transformation. The skin, I think the fabric allows me to create like those situations with my work.
Why I use body? I don't know. It's a portable material that I always carry with me. It's like how expensive printmaking paper can get. No, to be serious, I think I use skin because it helps me to narrate about time passing and memory. And there's this thing called memory, body memory, or skin memory, muscle memory. And there's a lot of like thinking about memories and culture influence on people and on that can be pictured on the body, within the body, in my work.
Do you have the cootie?
I'm getting
Oh. I'm joking. The figure, is that what
The
you're
body,
asking?
figure,
the
body.
the
you got
figure,
it.
the body,
Mhm.
figurative body,
All of it.
all of the above. I think I use specifically the Black woman figure in my work because there are so very few images of the Black woman figure in art historical works that I came across. And so I very much want to see Black women as protagonists and given agency and being full. And then when you think about the history of Black women in photography or in paintings, very rarely have we been in control of our gaze, right? And so that's a part of me, where they're masked, sometimes you can see them and sometimes you cannot, right? Where they're staring at you, but you're not necessarily being able to stare back at them, right? They have control of the viewer. And it's a level of secrecy. So secrecy and coding is a kind of currency in the Black community, and I'm interested in holding that in the Black woman figure. And the Black woman figure is one I have been in conversation with all of my life. And then also just having this reverence for the women in my family, right? So I come from women who are very girthy, Southern thick, right? Not fat, Southern thick, it's a difference. And seeing these women as honorable and beautiful and holy, and yet not seeing language or reading or visuals in which that reverence that I see them as is reflected elsewhere, right? And especially when you think about Southern narratives, Southern narrative and mythology, especially where Black folks are concerned, it seems to always be steeped in slavery. And I'm interested in other narratives. I'm interested in other ways of thinking, and I'm interested in other materials and dimensions just to reimagine that experience. And so that's a part of the reason I use the Black woman body.
Can you talk like today?
The end.
The end? No more. There's more. So, but you also build out the body. So we have, like, visually, we're seeing like your two-dimensional work.
Right.
But you have entire bodies of three-dimensional work that play off of the figure, that use fabric, that construct or like have these large kind of masks constructed.
Yeah, because when I think about divinity, divinity has a grand scale. It is majesty. It requires you to bow. And so I like the thought of like creating my figures. They're like, I think I've gotten at least up to about 12 feet tall, where you have to look up, right? Where you have to be in conversation with this being that I believe to be a godly form. And I want to be able to take up space. So one of my favorite artists is Chiara Scioto. She's a Japanese-German artist that takes up a lot of space, right? And it's beautiful and it's amazing. And so I'm thinking about like just mass, how do I take up all of the space in my work? Yeah.
Thank you. Now it can be the end
The
moment.
The end.
This is a different question. I prompted them with two questions, but I'm going to change one of them because I can. So in looking at all of your work, you each have a distinctive either mark or mark making practice, or gesture, like in the way that people pose, right? So you have, because I know you, like you have stripes that are incorporated into the work. So like there's patterning that is important in your work, and is also evident in your work as a printmaker. Can you talk a little bit about the marks that you make? You have repetitive shapes in your pieces as well. They like appear and then you'll walk down the hall and you'll see this kind of similar shape again. can you all talk a little bit about your mark making? Either is it a visual language that you're playing with? What do they mean? Why do they appear in your work and your process?
I don't know. I think there are a couple of objects or motifs that I'm continually playing with because they're familiar just from growing up, right? So I love pattern because I grew up with pattern makers and quilters and seamstresses, and being enamored by my great grandmother's doilies, and thinking for a very long time that toile was founded in the South because my grandmother had so much of it, right? And even that, in using toile in my body work, toile has all these layers to it, right? So toile is actually Indonesian. It's not French, right? It's not based in Paris. And what I love about toile is it has all of these beautiful vignettes, and you can tell a multiple amount of stories just in this one pattern. And just thinking about, toile is very much steeped in manifest destiny. It was a way that American culture was, just relaying what they had, landscapes that they had taken over, right? These beautiful histories. So I'm enamored by pattern and quilting and the symbology that's behind that. I am enamored by stripes, probably obsessed with stripes. Because again, biblically, because that's my background, you're not supposed to wear two patterns together. You're not supposed to wear stripes over, don't cross patterns. You're not supposed to wear linen and cotton together. Like just all of this craziness, and yet stripes were used as a way to demean women or say what person that you represented, what class of person you were in the community. It was used to talk about what your sin is, right? Is something that we use to talk about the class of children, right? Children draped in stripes. I look at all the Target commercials, there's always kids in stripes, right? And so, I think it's just probably a personal obsession that I'm trying to get out. And I don't know that I have resolved what that problem is.
That's fair.
Identifiable marks. I guess for me, it will kind of be how I normally capture images. Generally, all the stuff I do is usually kind of soft and warm, as somebody pointed out to me. Like for instance, when I'm shooting on film, like my favorite film stock is all this stuff. But it just gives like a really good soft, warm touch to the images, and especially the black skin, and just kind of just brings it out, makes everybody pop just the way it should. And generally, I can take like the hardest looking person, even like you see from images here, and just make them feel kind of soft, warm, and inviting as it comes into it. So generally, that's how my mark just kind of comes from. And obviously, a lot of people I do shoot are usually Black women in general, just because who all I grew up around. But I guess kind of taking up some of the points and ideas and thoughts from them is just where all the stuff just kind of comes into a lot of my work. Because, for instance, like I said before, like somebody actually thought most people thought I was a woman. They didn't know I was a man at first, but that's where somebody started explaining to me how my work looked. I was like, oh, that makes sense. I guess I do see it now. But I never really thought about it at first until kind of recently. But that would be some of the same general terms you kind of see. Poses, I don't have a general set of poses. I usually use certain angles when I'm shooting though. I'm usually shooting up a lot of times on people, making them feel a lot bigger or taller versus shooting down on them. But I think those are kind of some of the main marks that I usually notice. If anybody notices anything else, feel free to tell me. I might miss it.
Okay. The question was about patterns, no, and marks. I think because I start like a painter in a way, like color is very important for me and for my work, and I really love like graphic style, like when I was a kid, well, and now too, I really love like comics and that kind of image and the way they use color in this in those universe in the universe. And also I love how like also in different cultures it's very graphic the way that they show things and they mark their pieces. So I really wanted to translate that to the pieces I make. Well, and also my father, he was an artist, and he also was working with this kind. Also, he was working on like in how you say it? How you say it in English? I have to think. Like he was working in magazines and designs, and I was very involved in how he was using the color and the flat color and the patterns. I think some of that also like I took from there, but also I think it's a combination of different things. Like I don't know if there is like a mark. I'm like in a way it's all my work seems in a way similar, but it's changing. Like I have different series. I think I work with patterns and colors different series. So well, I
You
think
have this shape a lot, I've noticed. And walking around, there's this like, what do you call this? What is that? Yeah, that. Like, I don't know, not a U, but like a, what a, crescent. We'll go with crescent. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes. Like this
Crescent.
curved crescent shape. It appears a lot
What
in
is
your
crescent?
work. So crescent is like, oh, like the arc of the yeah, like a crescent. So it's like a bowl shape, like a curve.
Well, yeah. Well, maybe now you're saying, I'm thinking. Well, I think in some of my work there's a very maybe not this one, but I feel like a feminine component, and the curves appears a lot. Like it's something that when I started to sew, it's like I was like I don't know, like 15 years ago, something like that. It was very strange that the people they told me, but you sew like it's you that you make is or you have your mom or you have some woman friend that work for you. So I think in a way that the curve and that kind of stuff is very like a circle. In a way, I think that has some like a female energy that is represents. Also, I work a lot with these figures, the females that are like giving birth to this universe, or there are things that are coming out from these characters. So yeah, I think well that is something that yes, it has some kind of pattern and you can see in different pieces.
Thank you.
Why are you laughing?
Because I like to.
Um, I believe that we all leave marks on each other, like being in community, being members of the family. They are there. So I'm not creating those marks. I'm just putting ink to visualize them. Like my role is to observe and to like work with the marks that are already there. So some of my earlier works that were not included in the presentation, they were dedicated to certain people. They were more autobiographic, I would say. Yeah, so always like referring to some kind of story that's leaving marks on us as human beings, but this is something that we are all creating, just living. I like to make jokes with my friends, printmakers, that I've already saying that I've already created the best print I could ever done, and that was my son. That's a copy, that's the best copy I could get from myself. And it's also a mark. So yeah, that's something I can say about marking.
That's beautiful, actually. So I have to keep the time or keep track of time. So I want to open the floor up to questions, and I hope you have some. So if you have a question, shout it, raise your hand, whatever you want to do to communicate your question. Yes, Felicia.
Is the one pictured in that photo with your grandmother's house also pictured in any of the other images that you share?
Yes. Oh, sorry.
Can you repeat the question just in case for the people online?
So the question asked was, the woman in one of my images, does she appear in any more of my other work? Yes, she does. I'm trying to think what it is right now. Sorry, but that's one of my friends, Jakira. I ran across her online one day, and I was like, "You look amazing. Let's take photos." She popped up. We snapped some images. We talked. So I like to do and pop-up portraits. I like to just hit up people and be like, "Hey, you have a really cool head. Come shoot with me real quick." That's if you see DMs from me like that is what happens. So me and people end up becoming friends. But that's just my personality, though. So I did that to her. I'm like, your hair is blonde, pull up. We started shooting and doing stuff like that. And the next thing you know, we just kind of worked together on a few different other projects. And then I was like, you're the perfect person, as well as my friend Leon as well, to come ride with me. Because I try to make friends with everybody I'm shooting with at the same time, too, because it's a 2-hour car ride. Like, I have to be cool with the people or I'll kick you out. I have to. Which picture? Yeah, no, she said one to Shaq. All those are the same two models, yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your work at the hospital?
Yeah, so at the hospital, what I'll be doing is working with some patients from the cancer center, from Levine Cancer Center, and possibly a couple of others, but we'll be doing a photo project where there's kind of more or less going to be a tell your own journey type photo story. So they'll be able to take photos, and not just patients, but also caregivers as well too. But tell stories from their personal point of view and things like that. And I help guide them, curate the project into like an overall photo book that they can take home or keep, whether it's someone who's near the end of their path or someone who's just starting their journey. They'll have kind of like this keepsake that they can keep working with.
Yes, please.
I have a question. First, for you, what is the difference between showing? Let me start over. I feel like your work is a lot of reflection. I see this, I've lived this, I've experienced this. So, and then you translate that into your work. So for you, what's the difference between showing what you see, commenting on what you see, and telling a story about what you see?
I feel like it's all narrative. I feel like it's all story. That I'm translating my memories into narrative, and I'm Shakespeare. All the world's a stage, like all my right. So all the figures that are kind of played out on my stage, which is the wood panel or the canvas or the whole room, right? I feel like all of it's me storytelling, mostly because I feel like the premise of my work is like kind of being a griot of where I'm from, like, and so what does that look like for me? What does that narrative look like for me? I feel like it's one that is ever changing. But I feel like it's a compilation of all those things, what I see, what I remember, and then regurgitating that into artwork and pieces. Yeah. Is that fair? Okay. Good. That wasn't hard.
Other questions? All right, I'm gonna ask Zuza a question. Zuza. Printmaking is a very traditional way of working, and it's steeped in hundreds of years of practice. Can you talk a little bit about your kind of fractioning away from that tradition? What elements have you maintained what have you kind of let go of the tradition or the defined tradition of printmaking? And what has some of the response been?
So there, in traditional printmaking, there would be three basic elements. The matrix. You can use different materials to create that, like wood, metal, and so on. There would be paper, usually, maybe fabric as well, but traditionally it would be paper. And pressure. We can achieve that different ways, traditionally with the printing press. So I would say that there is not that much changed in my practice, because still there is a printing surface, a surface that is being imprinted, and a pressure. I just use the different materials or tools, but yeah, it still refers to very traditional techniques like woodcut, linocut, mostly relief printing techniques. So yeah, I would love to try to include some intaglio techniques for those of you who know more about printmaking, but it's harder to get that with like using skin and my materials. But I'm working on that. I might be doing some works here using something called collagraphy. And this technique, you can use collected materials like different patterns, like leaves or plastic elements, found objects. So yeah, it's all very traditional. You know, when I decided to study printmaking, my mom came to me and she said, "Baby, it requires so much patience. You're such an impatient person." And in the end, like, it's a huge variety of different possible directions. So this is what I like in printmaking, that it's strongly based in technical skills, but everyone can find something that would fit to his or her character. And yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, yes. Hi.
Ask something or ask a question, because when we think about traditional printmaking, I always hear printmakers speaking about an addition of prints that need to be identical or very similar, but I guess this is not happening when you are using a plugin. I mean, maybe in Sona it was happening to some degree when you have multiple users on the place.
You got me, Maya. Yes.
But when it's just you,
It's a mono print. Yeah. So yeah, this is something maybe that is being lost in my process. That's that's correct. This is something I always teach and remind my students, that they should create at least 2 copies to have an edition. Yes, but after I create my prints on skin, I use digital techniques like photography or video to document those works, and this can be edited. Like, you can have the addition of prints, digital prints or photographs. So the addition can be kept on the documentational level of the project.
So we're going to stop the formal part of the conversation. But again, this is truly the beginning of an opportunity, and we hope that you will, to continue a relationship with our artists in residence. They will be here through April 18th, I feel like. It's late and I just can't remember the date, but they will be here through mid-April. You have some time this evening to connect. So if there is something that was sparked in you that you didn't want to share with the collective but want to check in, please do. We invite you to come at any time. We are open Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 12 to 6, and admission is complimentary. We have a practice that if a studio door is open, that means the artist is open for a visit and conversation. So please come back. Let this be the first touch point, formal touch point with the artists in residence who are here with us this winter. And I hope to see you all again soon. Thank you. Oh, I forgot to say one thing. By the way, today I was working on, it's okay, you know you're doing this. Today I was working